Just really excited about the second meeting of this Public Safety Advisory Task Force. After the first meeting took place, I got a lot of feedback from people in the community, people who went back and watched the entire 3-hour recording and provided a lot of feedback to me, quite honestly, on it. And people talked about how impressed they were with the caliber of the task force members, with the conversation, with the way that the conversation was facilitated by staff. I mean, everything was overwhelmingly positive. And frankly, even from a couple of people who first called me and sent emails expressing concern. You know, whenever you're talking about a subject like this, it's obviously very emotionally charged in the time period that we're currently living in. And even folks who told me at first that they were skeptical of what we were attempting to accomplish and of everyone getting together to have this discussion, they were very impressed with the substance of the conversation, impressed with the data requests of the task force members, and really looking forward to the second meeting, which is obviously taking place right now. But just to tell everyone, I really appreciate the diversity of the people in this room. You were all selected, as I talked about before, for your passion and your knowledge and your experience and your unique connections to our community. And so we are really excited to have you here. This is truly pivotal work that, as we said, is going to result in a plan being brought back to our city manager, Andrew Ching, and our chief, Jeff Glover, in January of 2021. And I know they're very excited about taking a look to see what your recommendations and suggestions are. So with that, I just wanted to let you know your work is very important. We really appreciate you taking this time with us. And obviously, I'm available during the session and after if people have any questions, comments, or concerns. But once again, just thank you for all of your work and giving up literally 18 hours of your free volunteer time to assist the city of Tempe with developing a plan for what policing is going to look like in the 21st century. Frankly, we think not only in our city, but throughout the region and potentially even nationally. So thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So to move to the next frame, there is a blue arrow in the right-hand corner of the frame that we're on. If you click on that, it'll take you to our public comment frame. One technical note here, if you'd like to hide cursors, or if you get lost, in the upper part of your Miro screen, you will see a circle with my face. If you click on that, follow my face, you'll find out where I am, which will most of the time be on the correct slide as well. Mm-hmm. So if you have any questions, please feel free to chat with our tech assistant, Elisa, message her with tech, Elisa, in the Zoom chat, and we'll give you a hand there. With that, I believe the mayor, we're turning it over for public comments. Is that correct, sir?
That is correct. So I would guess, do we have our city clerk online?
No, but you have your mayoral aide, Brianne Fisher.
well, Brianne.
Public comment. We only have one today. The full name is Gregory Roberg. He resides in Tempe, Arizona. His comment reads, I would like to thank all of the committee members for their commitment to reviewing and making recommendations for future public safety change. I am also hoping that the committee will include a task to examine a variety of evidence of existing public safety operations in order to ensure that decisions are based on factual evidence and not anecdotal opinions of organizations and stakeholders. As a 6-year resident of Tempe, I am hoping that process is fair and all processes involve transparency. And that is it.
Great, thank you, Brand. I mean, anyone else, just by chance, who's on the line, who's attempting to call in right now, I just wanted to make sure that anyone who wanted an opportunity to speak from the public has the opportunity. Great, all right, well, hearing none, then I'm gonna go ahead and turn it back over to Whitell, and we'll get on with the rest of the agenda.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Again, I'm going to move to the next frame of our session by clicking in the right-hand corner of our frame that we're on right now on the blue arrow. And that will take us to our agenda. Thank you again for being here. Again, like the Mayor said, I'm Wydell Holmes. I'm with the Office of Strategic Management and Diversity. And it's a pleasure for our office to be part of this process with you and go on this journey. Wanted to just share, we are on frame number 4, the agenda. And I will give you some Miro tips in a moment, but wanted to let you know that our agenda really tonight focuses on some information from our interim police chief, Jeff Glover. And then we're going to follow that by breaking out into some Zoom rooms to do some strategic planning with a SWOT analysis. You were given materials late yesterday evening, and we certainly don't expect you to have mastered those, because really what this process is about is meeting you where you are now in regards to your perspectives and your experiences and your lens on our Tempe community and trust and policing. So we certainly don't want those materials to be a distraction, but we did want to respond to a lot of the questions that we had in our last session with chat, with the session board, and then some follow-up emails and communications that we've had with many of you. So we do appreciate those engaging with us even between sessions, and we would continue to work with you in regards to that feedback, and it helps to inform how we plan these sessions as well. So we really appreciate that information. So I'm going to take us now to the next frame, which is navigating Miro. It is the 5th frame. And this is my attempt at being a technical trainer. And so I want to just note for you, if you are on us on frame 5, in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see the number 1. That's where I'd like to start today. Not because it has a circle that will have my picture in it when you look on your Miro board, but mainly because if you get lost, please just follow my face, as we say, and you'll be caught up with the entire group then. Also, to the left of my face, you'll find an arrow, and that means you can hide the cursors that you're going to be seeing on the board, which means that my cursor won't interrupt you, as well as the 40 plus people that we have on the call today. So feel free to click on that if you'd like to hide cursors. If you'd like to see where everybody is, you can click on the arrow and see where everybody's located. Moving down to the right-hand corner of the Miro screen, we have a number 2, which is kind of our treasure map, if you will. So you can use this map as a navigation panel. It's a little mini map. And if you zoom in and out, you can see the whole entire board. We have it laid out, if you think about it, as in chapters of a book and in rows. So that way we can maybe find each other if we get lost in this session board. One of the things that would be helpful is if you, on frame 5, here, if you hover over the percent is, right now mine says 100%, and on my board actually it says 34%, you can zoom in and zoom out. So you can adjust the Miro board for your comfort of how you want to see the information. There may be times where you really have to zoom in to see some of the data and fact sheets that we've provided that I'll be showing you later. And then there may be other times you want to kind of pull out a little bit to see the entire space. So feel free to do that. When you're doing that, you're not adjusting anybody else's screen but yourselves. The other thing in the lower left-hand corner where you see the number 3, this is one of the features that I really enjoy. If you've ever worked in PowerPoint and you like to see that scrolling film strip, you'll see a frame with 3 lines in it, or a couple of lines. If you click on that, you'll be able to see on the left-hand side of your screen all of the different kind of an outline view of the session frames for today. And that is something that I like to keep up, because then I can see where we've come from and where we're going. And it also helps me navigate which board or which frame that we're on. And then finally, between the 3 and the 4, there is a toolbar, and you can actually, on that toolbar, find the sticky note. It looks like a square with the lower right-hand corner folded. And you can drag and drop those if you'd like to make comments. Most of the time though, today, we already have preset your sticky notes so that you can just click on them and add your ideas, your comments, and your thoughts. And that is one way that we translate our in-person process to this virtual reality that we're all in right now. One other reminder, if, for example, in the 3rd corner down on the left-hand side, you didn't see any a toolbar, you may have to expand that section with the grayed out arrows. So hopefully you've been able to do that. So again, if you're needing to zoom in and out, if you're on a trackpad, you can pinch in or pull out, or using your mouse, you can roll forward and backwards, and that will help you with your screen and start adjusting it. This is not something that we expect you to be experts at, but it will help you in engaging in the process for today. And in the middle, you'll see the big do not sign, which means if you see something and it says that it's locked, don't press down and unlock it, because that will move things around that we want to have stay in place. So it's kind of like moving the board game when the pieces are still on the board game. So we want to keep that board game in place and only move the pieces that we would like to play with today. So if you'll join me, again, in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see a blue arrow, and we've put those on all of the frames today for you. If you click on that arrow, we'll be moving to our screen setup, which is frame number 6. And we'd like to make sure that you have a great session today. So you can arrange your screens whichever way that is comfortable for you. You can put the Miro board on one half of your screen and then the Zoom panel on the right-hand side. If you are on multiple devices, say a phone and a laptop, then I would suggest that you put Zoom on your phone and keep your largest screen for Miro so that you can see all of the frames. And if you really want to zoom in, you'll see some information in regards to if you're on Windows 10 or on a Mac, some other tips that you might need. So if you need to spend a little extra time on that board, please feel free to go to do so if you're trying to get everything set up. And in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and take us to our next frame, which is frame number 7. And this is a frame that you might recall from our very first session. And it's in regards to the process and really kind of a pathway. We look at this as kind of our flight plan, but if we need to make adjustments, we're certainly open to that. And really what your feedback and really has informed how we are processing with this session, in fact. So I wanted to let you know that we started off with our orientation on October 13th. And today we're doing our SWOT analysis. We'll follow that up with vision and identifying barriers and creating strategies. That process might sound a little familiar to a few of you. And then we'll look at our plan elements. The plan right now is to look at those in December and then deliver a plan in January. So again, the purpose is to establish a strategic plan, and it's designed to build trust, accountability, and dialogue between our community and the police department. Again, we're looking for your perspectives, your place in time, your vision in time right now as you see our community and policing. So we don't expect anyone to be an expert on everything, but just bring your perspectives and your lens on the world to our discussions today. So I'm now going to move us to the next frame, which is frame 8. And we're going to prepare for some group work before I invite Chief Glover to join us with his opening remarks. And what I'd like for you to do is to look at these groups, and we have 5 thematic groups that will inform our focus groups today. And we're going to be moving you into these groups that you select. So kind of look through them. The first group is police service model, community engagement, our department budget, and our MOU process. The second group is about mental health and Care 7, as well as victim services and engaging with vulnerable populations. The third group in green is about policies, laws, and accountability. And the fourth group is on recruitment, training, our training budget, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And our fifth group is about data analytics and performance measures. What's important about these groups is not really how they're organized or what color we've themed them with, but it's that these are the groups that, based on your comments and your chat and the questions that you put on the session board in our first session, that informed kind of the high topic areas that you wanted to continue the discussion with. So that's how these groups were developed as far as these thematic areas to kind of start to organize our process, especially with such a large group of about 40 people. So the next thing I'm going to ask you to do is look at these and start to decide the one group that you might want to participate in just for tonight. This is not a long-term commitment. It's really the discussion group that you'll be part of this evening. And as we move to the next slide or to the next frame, I'm going to actually ask you to go to and put your name on the breakout room that you would prefer. Now, in the breakout room, before we do that, you're going to have a staff member who is going to be taking notes for the public record. Setting that aside, we're going to also ask one of our task force members to be the scribe for the group. We're going to ask a task force member to be a timekeeper for the group. And we're going to ask the task force member to be a reporter for the group when we come back to the main session. So with that, you're also going to have a representative from the police department in your group. And I want to really talk a moment about that in regards to their role. And we really want to hear from you. So in the breakout sessions, the role of our subject matter experts, if you will, say, for example, we have Sergeant Mayer, who is going to be in our training group this evening. He's an expert at that, but it's really not a time for him to give a presentation. It's more of if you have a clarifying question, he's available. It's also an opportunity for him to listen and learn from you in regards to your perspectives about our strengths and our weaknesses and opportunities and so forth in regards to training. So just to manage expectations that there will not be a presentation during your breakout session. There will be some materials to help inform you that you've seen last night, but we'll really use that time for your voice and the voice of the communities that you represent. So with that, we're going to go ahead and click on the blue arrow in the right-hand corner, and we're going to move to our next frame, which is our sign-up frame. And in this frame, some of you have already started, which is great. You can pick up your sticky note with your name. They were in alphabetical order, and just drag it over to one of the empty gray squares in order to be part of that group. And let's see. If your name does not appear, please put it in chat. Please let me know through the chat, and I will make a sticky note for you. Or you can click on one of the black sticky notes and put your own name in there and drag it over to the place that you would like to be for just this evening's discussion. Again, this isn't a permanent commitment. It's really just to help us focus the discussion for this evening. And after we do this, we're certainly will do that, Lauren, thank you. We will be coming back to the main group in regards to sharing the discussion that went on in the breakout groups. So Lauren, I have moved you over into your group 2, your victim services. And let's see if we have some other spots there. Again, if you need some assistance, please just put it in the chat and I'm happy to help move you to a breakout room. Okay. Pam, we have both rooms, so which one would you prefer? You could just send that to me in chat. And we'll put Hassan in room 4 per his request. And Hassan, would you like to be a timekeeper or a scribe? That looks, oh, you're already over there, Hassan. You're there already. Don't rush to be a timekeeper, but it would be helpful if you were. Okay. And Pam, group 3, let's see if I move you over there. Perfect. And anybody else would like some assistance with moving to a group, just please put that in chat and we'll make sure that you're moved over. Otherwise, just drag or click on the black sticky note with your name and move it right on over to the group that you prefer to be part of tonight. So again, we have 3 roles. We need a timekeeper, a reporter, and a scribe from our task force members. And we still have some time as we go through this. So continue to include in chat if you need some assistance moving to the group that you prefer to be part of. Please let us know. We'll continue to do that. And then if you want to just leave your name, we'll fill you in and we'll place you if you don't mind us doing that, if you don't have a preference or a choice. And as we continue to do that, I'm going to move us officially over to the next frame, but feel free to stay on that frame if you're still moving yourself to your preferred room. And I'm going to invite Chief Glover, our interim police chief, and I'll invite him to unmute.
Okay.
There you are, Chief.
Can you hear me okay?
We got you. Thank you.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, I want to thank all of the task force members for taking the time to be here and to basically, be able to share their knowledge and their information as to what they envision and what they would like to see from the police departments. Because much of what we are doing today is within these breakout sessions is going to be touching on the alignment and shared values between public safety and the community that we serve. So with public safety, we also have to acknowledge some of the failures, our recent failures that we've had that's been placed in the news, but we also have to acknowledge that, there's a lot of work to do, and that, we can't do this without the community, and the community is a part of everything that we do. And it's the reason why that we are here, is that we do this because of your support. As a department, it is our responsibility to, properly train, evaluate, and monitor our employees, not only work product, but also on an emotional level as well. And so we are now really re-examining and taking steps, putting together practices, best practices that help to support our employees, that's going to better serve our community. So today, we have a really unique opportunity to craft new organizational goals. That's going to be an inclusive process. And additionally, we'll have another meeting on November the 4th. We're going to be sending out a doodle poll regarding that meeting. So that way, we want to check people's comfort level, because that is going to be the day after the election. As for the election, we've coordinated with several East Valley agencies to ensure that we're prepared to keep our community safe for Election Day. So if any issues that would arise, we're actually going to be set up for that entire week to address any issues that may come up. Again, for this meeting, we have several items or materials that Wydell had mentioned that is going to be provided for you. And many of the materials is from the chat box, the information that you were looking for, that you were requesting. Now, some of this information, we weren't able to prepare all of that up front. There's going to be some of it that's going to come along in future meetings. So we're going to do the best that we can to make sure that you are all informed and you're getting the information that you actually need. I also want to make sure that I thank our staff, as well as the strategic management office, as well as other entities of the city, because without them, we are not able to put all this materials together. Cops are not good with PowerPoint and some of these materials, and so it was really instrumental in having them help to work to get some of that info to you all. Joining us today as well is going to be some other subject matter experts from the department. Assistant Chiefs Humble, you've already met Assistant Chief Pooley, Sergeant Kurt Mayer, which Wydell had mentioned, and as well as our Union President, Sergeant Rob Ferraro. They'll all be part of the breakout groups. So one of the things that we want to make sure that we stress to our task force members is that we want you to feel comfortable enough to just speak freely on this process, and what you're thinking, how you're feeling. You may not necessarily, as Wydell had mentioned, be an expert in any one of these particular areas, but your input is valuable for our process, because this shared collaborative approach doesn't always happen. This is very unique. Not too many cities, not too many places are doing something like this that we're doing, where we're bringing our community together to actually have shared vision with the police department in sort of building out that expectation as to what they would like to see. So we're doing some very, very important work today, and I just want to thank all of you. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to our facilitator, Wydell.
Thank you, Chief. Really appreciate that. So on our next frame here is a question pad, and I am on frame 11. And if you are lost, just please follow my face at the top of the board. And I already see I have 2 followers. That's probably more than I have on Instagram. So appreciate that. So we have created some question pads that if you would like to just add some questions, you can fill in the sticky notes that we already have in there, or you can drag a sticky note from the left-hand side of the toolbar and move it onto the question pad. We'll try to keep those populated with some blank ones so that you can add some questions. One of our commitments is that we are taking all questions and comments and creating responses to you and resources and information in regards to the items that you would like to have information about. So please feel free to use these question pads that we kind of intersperse throughout the frames. We don't have to be on that particular question pad for you to write a question. You can move to it and then come back to us on the frame that we're in. But as the chief mentioned, we would like to get your feelings of comfort in regards to our meeting on the 4th of November. And so I'm going to move to our frame number 12, and our Elisa is going to go ahead and put out our Zoom poll in regards to should we keep our November 4th meeting date. And this is in response to our members' comments. And so you would just say yes or no, and you can see the results as they come in.
Some of us may need sleep on November 4th.
Some of you may need sleep. Okay. Thank you, Roy.
That part.
Okay, it looks like voting is still, or your responses are still coming in. And you can continue to do that.
I mean, if I'm gonna be pessimistic about it, we may need to just leave. I don't know.
We still have about 2/3 have responded. If you haven't yet, this is a Zoom poll. And so correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa, but it should be popping up on your Zoom screen, not on your Miro board. So you may have to look at another device if you're on a couple of them. Okay, so keep providing your responses and we will come back to that before we close this evening. So I'm going to go ahead and move us to our next slide. And with your permission, I would like to go ahead and skip this break. We were anticipating, should we have additional public comments, that we might need a break at this period, at this time. So let's go ahead. I know we need some tech time. Is that correct, Elisa? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take about a 5-minute break. It's 4:36 in my time zone. So we'll go ahead and come back at about 4:41, and we'll reconvene really quickly. So grab your cups of coffee and your snacks and come on back in about 5 minutes. And if you haven't completed the poll, please do so. Let's see, Raquel, are you still on? I'm seeing a message that you cannot see the poll. Okay, so you're voting, is it yes, I cannot see the poll, or yes, we should keep the November 4th meeting date? And the
I can't
poll
see what the
should be
poll
on
is
your
either.
Zoom screen. Okay, so no to the meeting date, okay. And I'm sorry, who was that? Was that Jacob Rayford? And
Yes.
The poll
Yes,
is,
yes.
okay, the poll is on your Zoom screen. So if you open Zoom, does that help you out, Jacob?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Okay, thanks,
Where
Raquel.
in the
I
poll?
see it.
Where on Zoom is the poll? I'm sorry.
It should have popped up on your screen.
Oh, I had already voted. I thought you.
Oh, you'd already voted. Okay,
see
so
the,
once you do
the
that, okay.
percentage and whatnot.
Okay, great.
Okay, disregard. My bad.
Okay. And Raquel's in Zoom and still can't see the poll. So let's see. Got it. About 80% have voted. So we'll give everybody a chance. Raquel, I'll add. I've actually got the count going, and I'll make sure I add your vote of no, if that would work for you. Oh, Raquel, yes, right. Once you vote, it disappears. That seems to be correct. Okay, welcome back. Looks like folks are still coming back online. If you'd like to restart your videos or your cameras. And I do appreciate everybody staying muted. It helps with our feedback. Okay, thank you. And before we move forward, I wanted to give the chief some time to talk about two specific items that were requested in our last meeting. There was some information provided, but wanted to give the chief a chance to speak to these in regards. The two items were the Tiger Act as well as our MOU process. He will also be in the breakout group that includes MOU, but we wanted for the entire group to be able to hear this information before we go into our breakout groups and do our individual activities. So Chief, with that, if I may turn it back to you.
Okay, yeah, I'll be real brief on this. With the Tiger Act, that piece is actually sort of in a draft format right now. With um, the poll just popped up on me.
Sorry about that.
It is in a draft format with the city. It's at legal right now, and it is in regards to the MOU process. That is usually between the union and the city manager negotiating the MOU, and usually on I believe about a 3-year to 4-year window for the MOU. So.
Okay. So my understanding, and correct me wrong if I'm chief, is the Tiger Act information will be available around mid-November after it's gone to legal and HR?
Yes, sorry. Yeah, it
Okay.
should be available sometime around the second to third week of November after it's gone through legal and through HR, and then it'll be made available, and then we'll be able to get the information to the group, so that way they're aware of exactly what that all entails.
Okay. And I believe we have some more information. Rosa, can you add? I know you had some data that might benefit from this.
Yeah, so risk management was sharing some of the specifics regarding the how many employees have used the Tiger Act in 2018. We had 12 total. That might be of interest to the task force, and 4 specifically of the 12 were from our police department.
Okay, thank you. And so we're going to go ahead and move forward with our next piece of our process here, which is just to remind you, we've asked you to sign up for one of these 5 groups, and we will have you already with that sign up. It's just for this evening. We'll have you be on that focused discussion. And before we move to the breakout sessions, we kind of need to know where you are. So Elisa's still checking the sign up, and she'll place you if you haven't been able to place yourself, or if you just wanted us to choose for you. If you are still joining us, we've had some people come on board. Please remember that the Miro board is in the Zoom chat, and you can link on that. And if you'd like to follow me, you can see where we are. We are on the 14th frame, which is our signups reminder. And I think there's a tech question in the chat. If Lisa can help with that, I'd appreciate that. Thank you. Okay. So most of you have done some type of strategic planning, and you've heard of the word SWOT, which is not a police term in this case. It is a facilitation term in regards to getting an environmental scan of our current state. And so really a SWOT analysis is about looking at our strengths and our internal weaknesses, as well as our external opportunities and threats. And we're going to do this based on the themes that you've chosen to be part of the group tonight. The main purpose of this is really your perspectives. While we've given you some information, and I would really emphasize that it's initial information and data that you've requested, the main purpose of a SWOT analysis is to get where your perspectives are right now from your lived experiences, from the communities that you represent, and from how you see our community in regards to policing and trust and accountability. We really want to garner the community voice. That's why we've convened this task force, and we'll be doing some summarizing after your breakout sessions in regards to some external and internal factors. So the purpose question here, or the focus question when you do your individual brainstorming, is going to be, What are our strengths and weaknesses, and what are the opportunities and the threats to our community and police trust? So before we go to breakout sessions, I'd like for you to give yourself about 5 minutes, maybe 6, to come up with some ideas in regards to what are the strengths in regards to the focus area that you've chosen for tonight. What are the weaknesses? And I'm going to go ahead and move over to that instruction frame, and we are on frame number 16. Answer the 4 questions. I've given you some questions within each quadrant of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that might prime some of your thought process. Please feel free to take notes on a sheet of paper, and then try to come up with at least 2 or 3 per category. And so we're going to spend about 5 to 6 minutes. We will have you do this exercise individually. This is to kind of gather your thoughts and your ideas about our internal and our external opportunities, as well as internal and external weaknesses and threats. So if you'll take about 5 to 6 minutes, it's about 4:50. We'll reconvene in about 5 to 6 minutes before we move to our breakout room. So as we think about strengths, what have we built on that we would not want to lose? And where do we actually have some advantages and momentum? When we think about weaknesses, we look at some of the major issues that we might have as an organization. And then where might others, even outside of our community, see where our weaknesses are? And then we move over to kind of an external lens in regards to the opportunities that might be open to our community, and maybe some emerging ideas, trends, practices whose time have come. And then when we look at threats, we want to look at not only what other communities are doing, but what does our weakness expose us to, and what could harm us with our community trust in police. And we'll spend about 3 more minutes. Again, we are on frame 12. I'm sorry, no, we're not. We are on frame 16, my apologies. If you are lost in Miro land, please follow my face and you'll come to me. I actually am on the right frame now. Okay, we've got a minute or so left. We're looking forward to you have given yourself this time to go over strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats. Okay, I see some people still writing. I'll give about another minute. Okay, we want to make sure that everybody has chosen a room. If not, I will give Elisa the liberty to assign you to a room. Okay. All right, so we've spent about 5-6 minutes going over our own individual brainstorm and regarding the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities. So I want to give you a time to share this with people in your thematic group. And again, the groups were generated from your chats, your questions, your follow-up comments in regards to kind of taking a deeper dive into those areas. If you follow me to frame 17, I'd like to share with you kind of what the process over the next 45-46 minutes will look like. So in our breakout rooms, you're going to find a workspace that is similar to what is on frame 17. Again, if you're not on frame 17, if you follow my face at the top of the Miro board, you will have joined our group. And one of the things that I'd like to note out for you is, first of all, each group will have a scribe, a timekeeper, and a reporter. We'll ask some people that if we have that square still blank in your breakout room, we'll ask some people to maybe provide that role. We'll ask you to do some quick introductions, and then as an optional activity, review some data and fact sheets. So let me speak a little bit to that. Over on the right-hand side of this particular frame 17, you'll see a blue box. And in that, we will have dropped in some of the documents that you received last night. Again, this is not the time to, get your PhD in policing and community, but it is a time that if you'd like to refer to those documents, you're certainly welcome to do so. However, the main focus here is to really get your individual and your community perspective. We really want your voice and your community's voice in this process. Just as a reminder too, because some of the documents, the way that they go into the Miro board, if you need to zoom in, you do that by scrolling your mouse or by pinching on your cursor pad. You also can download documents, and I'm zooming in now on my screen, and I can see kind of the download arrow that points down with the line underneath it. And I can download that if I would like to have my own copy. If you do not want to do that tonight, or if you did not receive copies last evening, please let us know, and we'll be happy to send you all of this material. Again, the session is being recorded and broadcast. So we will also be providing this information on our public webpage, which is tempe.gov, Public Safety Advisory Task Force. No small URL there. And so we will make sure that everybody has access to this information. As you begin your discussion, we'd like for you to choose one of the quadrants to start with and spend about 3 minutes for each person to share an idea from your personal list. I ask that perhaps you come up with 2 to 3 ideas per quadrant of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So you have that information to share with your group. And then your scribe, once you've agreed on 3 to 5 ideas, maybe you'll find some common themes amongst yourself, or something that, oh, I wish I had thought about that on my list too, that you would want to have inform our planning. and your scribe will have some pre-populated sticky notes that all you have to do is click in on those and type out the idea. We want to get at least one agreed idea per sticky, and then 3 to 5 ideas per quadrant or category. And so I see some ideas coming in now that I'm going to go ahead and get you into your groups before we have that information put on the board there. So I like that. So with that, one of the things on how to find your group is if you selected to be in group 1, which was about our police service model, if you see the black button that says group 1, right below it is that blue arrow that will take you immediately to your group's working board. And once you do that, we're also going to whisk you away into your virtual breakout rooms. And don't worry, you won't be lost. We will check in on you and send you some messages. And I might even pop in every now and then to your group, so not to scare you with that. So we'd like for you to go ahead and click on the group that you signed up to be part of. If you're not sure, just send us a chat and we'll let you know if you don't recall which one you were registered or that you had elected to be part of. So if you go ahead and you click on the blue arrow underneath the particular group that you chose, we'll go ahead and move you to your virtual Zoom rooms, as well as you'll be on your session board that is yours to jot down and create your ideas as a group. Okay. So we are whisking you away. We'll see you in a moment. So welcome back, everybody. Make sure everybody's come back virtually.
Boy.
Make sure we didn't lose anybody out there. Okay, looks like everybody came back safe and sound. So really great work. Thank you for allowing me to pop in on your conversations, and very, very vigorous conversations, very passionate, and this is why you're on the task force. Great sharing of ideas. We're going to have a 7-minute break, and we will be moving your content over to the main session board. So if you could please not play with your content unless you're trying to like clean some things up. We will be looking for group 2 to send us your document, and Elisa will move those over into stickies for us. So we found a workaround there for that group for today. So with that, we will take a 7-minute break. And when we come back, we will continue our recording and broadcasting. Your Zoom rooms were not recorded or broadcast, but we will, that's why we had a staff member to take the public record. So that will be part of the meeting documentation. So with that, enjoy your 7 minutes. As somebody once told me, make good choices while you're in those 7 minutes. Is it food? Is it restroom? What is it? And we'll be back in about we'll be back in 7 minutes and see you in the main session. Thank you. One more second. Just like that. I can do those after. Okay, so we're back on.
I'm going to go ahead
And
and start the recording again.
okay, thank you. So we're now starting recording and our rebroadcasting. Thanks, everybody. Hope you had a chance to have a break. So one of the things that you'll notice if you're still moving around the board is we've been moving some of the sticky notes and copying them. So we are going to be going into our main session. If you are lost, please follow my face at the top of your screen in the circle. If you are seeing a lot of cursors, remember you can click on the arrow next to my face and you can hide your collaborators' cursors. And if you could please join me on the reflection frame, and it is frame number 24. And remember, in the lower left-hand corner, you can find the little picture frame. And if you click on that, it'll give you kind of the film strip view, either by the view or by a list itself. So we are now on frame 24. And I'd like to ask each group for one reporter from each group before we move to our session of looking at what everybody did in the strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats section, is to look, share with us one thing you appreciated about your conversation. And I'm going to kind of go in reverse order. And if I could have somebody from group 5 share what you appreciated about your conversation. And these are not your SWOT answers. We'll go through those momentarily, but just one thing about the experience of having that time to converse with with your fellow task force members. So I'm going to call on a task force member from group 5. Volunteer.
I think that was me. This is Genevieve Vega. I think I was voluntold to be our spokesperson, but we had a great conversation. We nerded out on data, and we got a chance to get a little bit technology focused and have some of those conversations. So I really appreciated the openness and the willingness to talk about where we have opportunity to improve.
Great. Thanks, Genevieve. So I'll volunteer from group 4. Same thing. What is one thing that you appreciated about your group's conversation?
Guess I think group 4, that would probably be me. Just a lot of really good ideas. I mean, there were a lot of ideas that came up in every section of the SWOT analysis. And even more interestingly, I think the most comments that were made were in the opportunity section. So I think it's always great when you walk away from a conversation like that one, thinking there are a lot of opportunities for kind of forward progress and to think about things differently. And there was definitely a lot of consensus among the members of our group.
Great, thank you, Mayor. And group 3, your appreciation for your conversation?
I guess that'll be me. Okay, so I really appreciated having the opportunity to just discover that we all do share some of the same agendas, and finding that out through the processes of structuring the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. I feel more confident in moving forward with this project.
Great, thank you, Jacob. And we'll move to group 2, please. A task force member. Who got voluntold from your group? Group 2.
This is me.
Hi.
And this isn't the SWOT you want, something that you appreciated about it?
About the conversation, yes.
We appreciated the consensus conversation around Care 7 that needs to be the first respond and not police, and that it also needs to be better funded so that it does have the resources it needs to help the mental health community.
Okay, so you had consensus around that. So you appreciated the consensus process? Okay, great. And I'll move to group number 1. And who is the lucky winner? Group number 1. Something you appreciated. Melody's laughing. I think you're on mute still. There you go.
Yeah, I was described, so I'll report out. But I think probably one of the things I appreciated about the group is really right off the bat, I think we established that we were coming from different places and we were approaching a subject matter from different perspectives, but we really came together and had a nice discussion. And I think we were able to really focus on getting some bullet points vetted from that process.
Great, thank you for that. So now on frame 24, the reflection, if you click on the upper right-hand corner, you'll see that blue arrow again, and that will take you to our strengths. And some of these notes should look familiar to you. And I'm going to get a thumbs up from Elisa that we finished processing the notes over. Okay, so what I'd like to do is to read these to the group, and then I will ask for you to place your dot on things that we can improve, that we can build upon to build our community trust. So one of the groups said new leadership, a strong desire to change, willingness to include community willing to do the work and cares. Care 7, already doing good in services. Following down into some of the purple cards, police as a partner in process, compensation and benefits package, continuing interest recruits, competitive selective process, community relations for recruitment. Up to some of the gold cards, clearly a moment where the political environment where reforms are possible. Open data, data academy ahead of other cities, willingness to change. Culture of data in the city. Activity level, crime data collected. Spark Unit Tech has a good analytical unit. Well-defined open data policy and process for publishing data. Acceleration model, departmental analysis of acceleration for goal attainment and budget planning aligned to priorities. In the green cards, some of the other strengths were open line of communication between the community and Tempe Police Department, allowing information regarding reasonable and actionable changes, working directly with elected officials, citizen review panel, Care 7, and being inclusive with the Black and Brown community. Are there any cards that you have questions about that we want to understand the intent of the card that maybe is not clear?
So I don't really have a question, but I wanted to clarify our willingness to include the community. And this was something we spoke at length about and have some specifics that are really important to the group. So one of the strengths is a willingness to include the community who has been most negatively impacted and previously excluded from the conversation.
Okay.
That was something that came, I think that was a real strong point for our group to define that.
Okay. And it looks like Elisa's adding some of that verbiage for us there. I can see her cursor. Okay. Any other clarification around the cards under our strengths? Feel free to raise your hand in person or in chat, and I'll try to pick you out, or just unmute your mic.
So another one that we had, Wydell, was a strong desire to change by the community, police, and by city leadership.
Strong desire to change by community, police, and community leaders?
Correct.
Okay. Are there any questions about some of the cards that you might have that we would want to clarify that maybe were from another group?
I would like to clarify the note that says being inclusive with the Black and Brown community. I'm not quite sure what is meant.
Okay. Can we have somebody from the group who wrote that card?
This is Jacob. I'll respond to it, and there are others in the group that might also want to respond. In fact, I was going to bring this up also because we originally started with that terminology, but then once we got into some of the other areas like weaknesses or some of the other kind of areas, we were saying, is it Black and Brown? But really what we also wanted to make sure was included in there were vulnerable populations. Because I think
Okay.
the idea of certainly I don't think it's not just an issue of Black and brown, but also for vulnerable populations was
Okay.
something that we added as a clarifier or an extension of that in some of our other notes. But
Mhm.
it originally started here and then it kind of evolved from there. So I don't know if others want to weigh in, but we could also add vulnerable populations to
You're
that.
saying that the Tempe, who's being inclusive to them?
No,
Being
more or
inclusive,
less.
go ahead, Jacob.
Oh, sorry, Jacob. um, more or less, like he was saying, it was more about the concept of this advisory board.
Okay.
Attempting to be inclusive and represent, the underrepresented communities, marginalized communities. So
Okay.
I think it was just worded wrong.
Jacob, would it be fair to say that Tempe acknowledges the need to be more inclusive of these vulnerable communities?
Yes, and that's why we're here. So yeah,
Okay.
I feel like it was not our.
I think that's probably more than probably where you're trying to go with that.
Yeah, that's where we're
Okay.
going with that.
And you
Thank
can
you for
see
asking
in
the
the,
clarification.
okay, great. And you can see in the blue box in the right-hand lower corner, we're trying to capture that clarification. Are there any other cards that you would like to have clarified or any other sticky notes?
Waddell, the citizen review panel, is that this group or is that something else?
Okay, somebody from that group, the intention with that card, with that note?
Yeah, this is Pam. I put that down there because we were looking at strengths. And our city already has a citizen review panel. Whether or not it's doing everything it could do or has all the power it could have, we do have it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Pam. I didn't know that. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question. I'm sorry, regarding the compensation and benefits package.
Okay, some clarification around that one. And that is on the, I'm looking for the card here. It's on the purple card in the middle. If you follow me, I'm right there. And can somebody from the group who wrote that sticky note clarify for us?
So I think we were talking in our group that the compensation and benefits package that's offered to the police, to people to be part of the police, is a strength, that we have a good package.
Okay. Any other notes for clarification?
How do we know that? How do we know that we have a great package? Do we review what other cities, Mesa, Chandler, Gilbert, etc., by comparison have to our total package? To understand if we overcompensate, undercompensate, have things that other cities have in the package that we do not? Just a question.
Okay. Anybody like to clarify that or have information on that one?
Maybe the mayor or the police chief would be a good one to respond to that.
Or assistant chiefs?
Yeah, I mean, I know that we benchmark ourselves against other surrounding East Valley cities when it comes to salary and compensation. And at one point, I'm not sure if this is still accurate because obviously I'm just back from a 4-year break from elected life. But at one point, I know we offered, the highest starting salary of any police department in the East Valley. I'm not sure if that's still the case. I mean, I'd have to probably turn to Chief Glover or Assistant Chief Pooley or Assistant Chief Humble to let me know.
So I can speak a little bit to that. We are very competitive with other agencies. We look at the agencies surrounding us and around the valley and compare ourselves to them, and we're very competitive with the other agencies.
Okay, thank you. Any other cards that need clarification?
No, the only thing I would add, Wydell, is there's also other benefits like the tuition reimbursement that he offers and the healthcare are big draws for us in Tempe for our benefit package.
I think also in addition, I'd like to know about training and where in training dollars do we benchmark in comparison with local cities, and, you know, even East Valley centric, but it'd be good to know where we benchmark with respect to training.
Okay, we'll make a note of that, Alana. Okay, so for, sorry, Arlene?
Can I clarify how the conversation around that one Post-it, it was, and it was within the context of hiring, training, that sort of thing for the police department. And we talked about how we have applicants and that Tempe was a desirable place to live and work, or work in this case. And so that to us was a strength of hiring, that people are interested in working. So it wasn't entirely a money conversation. It was about Tempe PD was a desirable place to work for.
Desirability. Okay.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, with that for strengths, I'm not seeing hands. I'm moving to make sure I'm seeing everybody. Okay, so what we'd like for you to do now is, and if you need help, let us know, but we'd like for you to place one of the green dots on the strength that you think we can best build upon to improve community trust with police. There's no wrong answer, so just move a dot. And if you need some help, just put it in chat, or we'll give you a few moments to do that.
Sorry, remind us where the dots are, the blue dot?
In the bottom left-hand corner, there are green dots next to the instruction panel to the left. And just place it right on that sticky.
A little help to get back to that board.
Okay, John, if you follow me, I think that was John, right?
Yes.
Follow my face at the top of your screen. I'm right at that board. Did you find me, John?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm on that board now.
So to
I
clarify,
just can't figure
what we're
out how to
doing,
get the dot up there.
Yeah.
are we trying to just say which one we think is our greatest strength, or is it
that the strength that we can best build upon?
That we can best build upon. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I appreciate the question. Okay. Mayor, I'm going to ask if you got your dot moved because I saw you hovering there.
I was pondering.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure we didn't need any help.
No, there were so many good notes. No, but I did drop mine. Just since we're talking about mine, I dropped mine up to the willingness to include community who's been most negatively impacted and previously excluded.
Okay, great. Okay. So we're going to move over to our weaknesses. So again, if you click on the blue arrow in the right-hand corner, it'll take you a little bit down screen this time to what you cited as weaknesses. And I will quickly read these for you. Weaknesses: lack of transparency related to holding police accountability. Remember, you can always follow me up in the circle if you feel like you're a little bit lost here. Lack of public acknowledgement about the other dimensions of public safety and other than policing. Funding priorities, the militarization of policing. Lack of acknowledging the role of structural racism. White fragility. Disproportionate funding priorities. Funding, lack of funding or funding that can be collaborated with other. Data needs to be available and updated. Dispatch associated with police, but not all police calls need to be independent. A sense of lack of accountability, timely communications, lack of transparency in MOU process. I'm now moving over to some of the orange stickies. Lack of true accountability for excessive force and racial profiling. Lack of up-to-date data on arrest, use of force on Black and Brown subjects. Lack of transparency in negotiation of MOU with union. Continuing with the green stickies, use of force reform regarding language such as reasonable belief and, quote, if there is time, insufficient funds for mental health response. Moving to the yellow stickies, demographic data availability by hand today, data transparency, what gets published and how is that determined, cost and lag time on improving data collection, incomplete data, not timely, missing outcomes, automation for real-time results. And our purple stickies, general curriculum outside training, getting at implicit bias, inability to have our own training standards, automatic disqualifiers of AZ post, can't embed Tempe culture into training. What is demographic of our pool? Who are we disqualifying? So any clarification that you would like around any of those sticky notes, and we'll call upon the group who wrote them to clarify intent. And can raise your hand or unmute your mic. You guys have done a great job of not talking over each other. So with such a large group, I'm trying to look for any hands raised. Rabbi, did I see you raise your hand or did I miss you? Okay, thank you. Seems like we have clarity on those. Couple more minutes here. Okay. So similarly to what we did with our strengths. Oh, Arlene? Or I saw your thing pop up, sorry. Keisha, did you have a question? Okay. Pam? No, okay. Maybe a stretch or two, I don't know. Okay, so the question for this one that we'd like for you to consider for your dot is the weakness that could derail our efforts if we don't pay attention to it. What would derail the task force and the strategic plan if we don't pay attention to this particular weakness? And this would be a time to move the red dots. And those are located in the lower left-hand corner of the frame to the left of the instruction box. And again, if you'd like any assistance, it took me a while to figure this out too, so please put it in chat if you'd like for us to move it to a particular sticky note for you. So is this something to remember is that each of the sticky notes colors represent the theme of that particular breakout group. And we had police modeling, MOU and budget, as well as training and accountability, data and performance measures, mental health and wellness, and laws and policies. You guys are getting really good at this Miro board. Good job. Okay, it looks like we have most of our stickies moved. Just a few more people moving them, thank you. Couple more dots being moved there. Okay, with that, when you're finished with moving your dots to those weaknesses that could derail our efforts if we don't pay attention to it, we'll go ahead and move to our opportunities, and you can do that easily because now we're going to move a little bit diagonally on the board by clicking on the blue arrow in the upper right hand corner of the weaknesses frame, and that will take you to the opportunities. Okay. I'll go ahead and start reading these for you. Understand the public process of MOU and budget, and I'm starting with the orange cards. Create a safe and supportive environment for communities to, create a safe and supportive environment for communities of color, marginalized communities. Creating a model for other police departments. Hear from a broader community. Business outreach and collaboration. Immediately implement best practices. Involve reps from the Equity and Action Group. Acknowledging trauma, police, and community. I see you're already moving dots, great. Care 7 expanded models. Focus needs to be driven directly to those needing services. Opportunity to reframe responsibilities of Tempe Police Department to prevent issues with officers lacking training in vital areas. Opportunity for public engagement. Another opportunity to ensure the police panel is given full powers and independent of Tempe Police Department. Opportunity to look into Tempe Police Department using excessive force to suppress peaceful protest. Reframe the responsibilities of officers. Moving to the gold cards, yellow cards. Share progress, document mitigation plan, measure success, predictive analytics. Better data will lead to better policy over time. Use data to drive police policy. Share data and information to help frame solutions. Use of force data for public awareness. COVID lessened opportunity to speak to the community. Potentially refocus performance measures to prioritize efforts in PD. Again, opportunities ensure we're appropriately framing the problem so a data solution can be implemented to help move to the next level of data collection and reporting. Show progress, document mitigation plan. I think we have some repeats here. Okay, we do on those yellow ones there. So moving to the purple cards. Increase diversity, broaden our candidate pool, implicit bias testing, review recruitment process and data about candidate pool, training modified by current trends, partnerships with other cities, ASU, as well as identify ways to better prepare candidates in the recruitment pool. So you've already got the hang of this. And the question about your dots is, what are the opportunities we might leverage for community trust in police? So one thing I'd like to invite the group to do is, especially on, for this board, and we'll do it for the other boards as well, as what reactions do you have to this one in particular with the green dots and where they've been placed?
I think my initial reaction about that one is just that on the previous two with strengths and weaknesses, I thought the dots were all really kind of on like one or two options. And on this one, the dots seem very spread out over multiple notes. So there's kind of like a broad diversity of viewpoints here about what opportunities we could better take advantage of. But my perspective is it's not bad. It doesn't show that we lack consensus. It actually shows that there are a lot of good ideas put out that could be potential opportunities that we should really thoughtfully explore.
Okay. Other reactions to opportunities, strengths, or weaknesses where we've placed the dots. And again, you can zoom in and zoom out to move from the boards. So, any other reactions to that? To the dots?
This is Jacob.
I have one, please.
So Randy, council member.
Thank you. There's 5 green dots on better data will lead to better policy over time, and better policy, of course, leads to better policing. And I think it's really important that data be considered in this process, because no matter what we do, if we can't prove measurably that this is successful, we're always going to be struggling to kind of keep up. But I do also think that data will, like solid collection and refinement of data, will lead to us identifying in the future areas of improvement that we may not even realize yet.
Okay, thank you. And Jacob Moore, you have your hand up.
Sure. So first of all, I think my dot went under the Post-it note because I put it on something and then it disappeared.
Okay.
But it was actually under the decoupling Care 7 from police completely.
Okay.
And maybe that isn't exactly what.
We'll make sure we put a dot there for you.
Yeah, and that's not why I wanted to comment. But I guess my comment is where I find this one interesting is really Care 7 as it relates to the green sticky that talks about reframing the responsibilities of officers, which ties back to, you know, some of the concerns about the marginalized communities when in fact, you know, there are mental health issues or other issues where ultimately officers in some cases are expected to be social workers or may not respond to an incident without having sufficient information in terms of what's happening. And so for me, I guess maybe thinking about the opportunity that I don't see really kind of fully articulated here is this kind of this idea of reframing responsibilities along with the responsibility of Care 7 is perhaps a different response than other than sending an officer into a situation that may not necessarily be, you know, something that ends up in on the law enforcement side.
Okay, thank you. One more call for reactions in regards to where we've placed our dots. Make sure I haven't missed anybody here. Go to my second screen. I don't see any hands up, so we'll go ahead and in the upper right-hand corner, we're now going to move to the lower part of the screen, but in the upper right-hand corner, if you click on the blue arrow, you will move to our report out on threats. And I'll begin those with, I'm going to change it up a little bit and go with the gold ones. Not being able to reach consensus that data collection is a very important part of this process. Lack of transparency, dismissive to plan, culture change, willingness to change. If people believe PD is not transparent, hiding or manipulating data, bias in collecting the data, difficulty providing context to the data, cost to invest in and implement a solution. Moving over to our green cards, distrust of PD by marginalized and other communities, fallout from elections, counterterrorism unit, qualified immunity shielding officers from accountability. Look at policies regarding no-knock warrants and chokeholds, making policies that are geared towards protection and not harm. Moving to the purple, money, budget, external perception issues, internal concerns about change, transparency, and how to continue to attract quality recruits. I'm going to go up to the upper left-hand corner for the orange ones. No talking about the actual problems, everything I shared in weakness if not addressed, lack of trust, unable to forgive the past, sacrificing strengths to address immediately determined weaknesses, lack of resources, blue cards, trust, vernacular, have to have common language and other efforts to build community trust to do this work, and system needs overhaul entirely. So as we did, the question for these red dots are, place your dot on the threat that demands our focus in our planning.
Can I get?
Hello?
Sorry, my bad.
Oh, no problem.
Clarification around the counterterrorism unit.
Sure. Can someone speak to the which group provided that sticky note on counterterrorism unit? The green card. What was the intent behind that one?
This is Jacob. That was our group, and there are others that can speak to it that, you know, made that statement or the recommendation. But the way I understood the concern was the threat of the counterterrorism unit in terms of threatening those that may be out, you know, that are out. I don't want to say protesting, but participating in events and activities where, you know, they are being targeted by counterterrorism units.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry, I was trying to fix my mic over here.
It's okay, Jacob.
That's also how I interpreted that, especially someone who's had firsthand experience in dealing with some of these units and some of these predatory tactics. That's definitely a cause of concern.
Okay, great. Any other clarification of the stickies that were on the report out for threats?
Can we just maybe get some clarification from either the chief or Corey around how that is actually being used to monitor victims of police brutality as well as activists of the Black Lives Matter movement?
I'm trying to understand your question. Are you talking about the counterterrorism unit?
Yeah, I understand the question. I mean, I would
Okay,
turn to the chief or one of the assistant chiefs. I mean, since it's an operational issue, to ask them, like, about kind of, they could explain a little bit more behind that, because it's.
I can, as an update for those that might not know, and I can drop the link in here. An article just came out from the New Times that said that they're investigating organizations like ours and victims of police brutality. And we're wondering why we're being subjected to this terrorism.
Yeah, so that is the threat mitigation unit, not terrorism unit. They have what is called a TLO program, which is a terrorism liaison officer. What they do is they monitor open data, so open social media accounts, things of that nature. If you're going to have an event or something that's going to occur within Tempe, then some of those officers are going to, they have a keyword search that basically alerts them that there's going to be a major event in Tempe. So part of it is being able to protect the surrounding community and the people that are actually in a part of that event. So for instance, if you're going to come into Tempe and you are going to basically attract a very large crowd, you're going to end up possibly creating a situation where there's going to be other people that are involved in wanting to interact with your group in a negative fashion or even target you. So that group is actually doing what we call threat mitigation to try and keep a level of safety for any event, whether that be a protest or that just be some type of a rally that's going on within the city. They want to make sure that everybody is safe, that the community is safe. And so that is what the actual purpose of a threat mitigation unit is for.
Can I ask a question about that counterterrorism? If you had, do you have the ability to investigate a situation where it recently happened in Michigan, as an example? That's a much larger kind of a situation, but a group of people that were going to take the governor to a different place and kidnap her, etc. Something like that could happen in this city, that somebody was so upset with an official or a group is upset with an official that they wanted to take some action about it. How would you learn about that and work to mitigate that?
So that's
specifically
not actually what's happening. You can see in this article that you're not looking after right-wing threats, and we get tangible, credible threats by right-wing actors like the AZ Patriots. We get death threats all the time, and the police protect them. But you guys are investigating us. You're also investigating victims of police brutality like Ivan Okri. So why would you be investigating the social media of someone that you brutalized?
So let me explain. So what John had just described is a perfect example of what threat mitigation does. The example that you're talking about that New Times described is a very one-sided article that they're basically giving you information from what they were able to retrieve from a records request. And then because they did not have conversations with those TLOs or any of those folks that are connected with threat mitigation units to say that, hey, when we are monitoring these situations, that we actually are looking at everybody that's attached. So that's, if you're out there and you're actually, posting that you're going to be at this certain location, well, those other radical groups that may be looking at that, they're monitoring that as well. But it's not active monitoring or investigation. It's, like I said, it's a keyword search. It pops up. It comes up as an event that's going on in our location. So then they look at it. once that is done and it's over with, they're not monitoring it anymore. So for instance, with with Ivan Okri, it's a keyword search because we know that if his name is mentioned, maybe there might be a protest that's associated with it. So then it's going to be monitored until we know that there's going to be we're going to have everything safe, for whatever event that's taken place. Then it's not looked at.
Thank you. So any other clarification of the cards on the threats board? Okay.
I just want to mention the internal.
One second. I'm sorry. Do you mind if I jump in before we switch
Yep.
subjects? Because I believe people in the comments were asking about direct examples. And one that I can directly point towards is the July 28th incident, which resulted in the excessive use of gas, physical force against peaceful attendees. So for those who are looking for incidents, that is definitely one to refer back to.
Okay. Thank you for reminding us of the conversation in the chat, Jacob. I appreciate that. Dr. Lerner?
I just wanted to clarify the concerns about change, that if you don't have buy-in from the organization that you're trying to make change in, it's not going to happen. So that's what that internal is talking about, that we can't just force things on people, right? We have to have a buy-in as part of it. And I wasn't sure if it was clear on that.
Okay, thank you. I see Elisa's putting some of the conversation here in our notes as well. So with that, we're going to go ahead and move to some implications that this analysis might have for our planning. So if you could click in the upper right-hand corner on the blue arrow, we'll move to our frame number 29. It's called Implications for Our Planning. And like to just see what further understandings do we want to seek out before we have our next session where we will be describing what success looks like. You may know that as a visioning session, but what further understanding would we like to seek out before we go to that and before we start to pivot here?
We had an extensive conversation that I left feeling like I needed to seek out, is that there seems to be still, like, at times in the conversation, a denial that certain things need to change, or that, like, how violent the department is. So I want to get clarification is, like, are we all working from this place that my understanding is, like, there's a problem, there's a lot of problems, and we're coming together in this formation of folks to solve those problems, specifically the brutalization, shooting, and killing of Black, Brown, Indigenous people, the disproportionate, huge disparities, and that because of that, we need to center solutions on the people who are most directly impacted. And so I'm seeking clarification if that is true. Are we centering that experience and trying to make sure we all collectively trying to make sure that police violence from Tempe no longer exists? And if not, then, like, I don't know what we're doing or what I'm doing here, but that's a clarity I would like to seek. And I don't know if that's, like, everyone saying yes, or if it's, Mayor Wood saying, yes, that is what we're doing, or it's a combination of that. But that was a big point of conversation in our meeting earlier, or kind of seemed like a little bit of a point of a debate. And that's one. And the other, if we move forward from that, the other one I need clarity on is, how is decision making happening, and what's the process that we're actually engaging in to make decisions?
Okay.
I can definitely respond to VD's first question. It's actually a really good question. I think we're exactly on the same page. I think that the biggest thing is, I think there are definitely communities that live in Tempe and even just in the greater Metro Phoenix area who, feel very comfortable, with the police, whether it's the Tempe police, Phoenix police, any other police department. But there are groups that have very different experiences and very different feelings about policing. And so I think that's one of the main reasons why we're having this conversation, is to make sure that we are hearing from groups that are, people who are all over Tempe, but the Valley, but also people who have been actively involved in protest movements, people who've been actively involved in going to public meetings, whether it's Phoenix City Council, Tempe City Council, and speaking about these situations. So I think it's about, frankly, recognizing that we all have different experiences within the community, and clearly for communities that are coming forward and saying, hey, we don't feel that things have been fair and equitable, and we feel like there is a history of us not being treated the same way as other communities, I think we have to address those issues head on. And I think that, so I think from my perspective, that's definitely one of the main reasons why I wanted to have this group.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Any other?
Can I say one more thing? I think
Sure.
it's also really important too. I mean, the fact that people are sharing, like Jacob talked about a specific situation that he referenced, Jacob Rayford, that is, I mean, I think that that's what I'm really enjoying, is that people are having a very unfiltered, candid conversation about saying, look, this is my perspective, and I either want this question answered right here on the spot, or if we're running out of time, I definitely want to make sure in the next meeting that we do get some answers to these questions, because, I think even, one of Raquel's questions in the chat talking about, threat mitigation, because it's something that I don't totally understand myself. And I'm sure, Chief Glover obviously has a lot of background and experience, 20 years being a police officer, but I don't always understand, kind of what goes into some of those assessments and mitigations as well. So that's information I think that I would love to have too moving forward. And, so I appreciate him beginning to kind of explain that to us. So.
Great, thank you. Any other further understandings we would like to seek out?
If I may, I would just like to say that people need to come, we all have to come to this conversation and to this work willing to be challenged and willing to be made uncomfortable. I feel like over the last maybe 15 to 20 minutes, there was some uncomfortable truths shared. And, you got to be okay with that, because that's where the change needs to be made. And there were some legitimate comments and concerns expressed. And so this is the place that, even though it may be uncomfortable, we are going to have to address those legitimate concerns and questions. So I appreciate this being a space being made. And there may be some people that are uncomfortable with sharing their specific, because I'm like, hey, can you give some specifics? And they may be uncomfortable sharing that right here. But I hope that the chief and or the mayor creates a space for people to share their stories if they have some direct stories to tell.
Thank you.
This is Raquel. I'll jump in. There are two specific things. VD asked a question specific to decision making that I think you're able to maybe answer right now, Corey, just because I think the process is potentially still developing in that area. And hopefully these conversations will inform decision making. One, and maybe decision making being different than it has been in the past, hopefully. The other is an implication here is about resistance and inability to hold and navigate and move through discomfort, particularly for city staff. If that does not get handled and does not get some muscle behind, like muscle on how you do that, the implication for me is that we will continue to have these conversations round and round and round, and no real change will happen, because real change happens when you move through discomfort. And if folks can't handle that, then that's a challenge. That's a real, I'll just say it, that's a real problem. And the implications of it are huge, particularly for the type of relationship building that's being extended, opportunity for relationship building that's being extended in this type of a format. This has the possibility of really exponentially moving us forward and building relationships where we can create transformation together, but it also has the equal exponential opportunity to blow up in our faces. And we each take responsibility. And I believe some of that responsibility is for how we all hold discomfort, and also how we hold beliefs around what is civil discourse, what is appropriate, what is better. Those are all code words for a particular way to be in groups, particularly these types of groups. And I think there are several people on the call, and I know I am certainly one of them, that I don't have a problem. It's not comfortable for me, but I don't have a problem showing up in a way that might not fit that that desire for me not to speak. If you can't handle me speaking strongly, then we need to have a conversation about how we listen and how we talk to each other.
Thank you, Dr. Gutierrez. Any other final further understandings we'd like to seek out before our next session?
Yeah, this is Genevieve. I want to kind of echo what folks have been saying. You know, I don't think we have reached an agreement on how we talk about things. What are our group norms? And we have to establish those before we can get comfortable being uncomfortable. So understanding how we disagree, how we come to consensus, I think we're still missing a little bit. I'm also looking to kind of pull that thread about that Viri was getting at around, you know, what is it, what place are we starting from? What is our starting point? Because we all come to the table with different perspectives, different lived experiences. And so I still don't feel, even after all these exercises and doing the SWOT analysis, I don't think we've actually defined the problem that we're solving.
Okay.
I think we all have a different idea of what we're trying to solve for. And so I don't think that we know, I put this comment in earlier on one of the sticky notes, was I still don't know what the purview of our recommendation should be. I personally don't feel like I understand what is it, just those 5 areas that we were discussing? What are our parameters? What are we allowed to discuss? How are we able to put things on the table so we can, again, define them? And then if we're going to make a recommendation on that problem, how do we measure the effectiveness of that recommendation? How do we build a system to hold people accountable to that recommendation, assuming it's approved? So I think there's a couple of building blocks that we're missing along the way in order to get to that vision.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'm going to echo Genevieve's points right there. I think I mentioned this the first meeting. I think that we need to establish a baseline for where we're, you know, what's our threshold and where we can all start from. Where's that point of agreement? And then the parameters for what we're trying to create here, and what are the buckets of change that we're really honing in for. And I'm an example of, you know, I'm a Latina, but I have a very different experience, you know, with police in the community as I grew up, because I just grew up in a different environment. But I can have a level of empathy and sympathy because I understand the community and I understand different aspects of the community. But I know that I need to learn more because there's a shared experience that I didn't have growing up as a Latina, but more in a white dominated, you know, Silicon Valley community. And so I grew up with very much different norms than if I would have grown up in East San Jose, for example. Very different experiences. And so I think it's really important to understand that I may have a certain perspective when it comes to the police that may not be as threatening, but as I listen and as I obviously have seen the news, I'm saying I'm part of this forum, this task force, because I do recognize that there has to be some change because of where things have gotten today. And so, you know, hopefully there's something that we can start bridging between, you know, experiences like mine versus, you know, others who have had much darker experiences.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to say real quick that I appreciate the comments and the feedback from everybody, because it's really important to see exactly where everybody is at right now. And that, you know, I mean, the one thing that we all know is that if this was going to be easy, we would be done already. And we're far from that. There's a lot of work to do. We have a lot of things that we have to cover and a lot of bags to unpack from the issue in policing itself. And I believe that's something that's being recognized right now. And so, you know, I'm looking forward to our future dialogue and seeing exactly where that leads us. But I know that, you know, there's definitely some processes that we'll have to, you know, really look at in terms of just where we're, you know, how we're going to get, you know, moving forward to being able to accomplish this end goal.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. So seeing no further hands, I want to make sure I'm not missing anybody here. We will move forward to our next piece here. So again, if you click on the arrow on the right-hand corner, just want to remind you, we do have a question pad. If there's other questions that we haven't been able to get to this evening, we are certainly committed to following up on those and working with other people who can provide other information. So we will lean into that. And then want to then move us to our next step. So if you click the arrow in the upper right-hand corner, I would like to turn this over to Rosa and Chelsea from the Strategic Management and Diversity Office.
Well, looking at the time, we only have a few minutes, so I'm going to make this very quick. Thank you again, everyone, for participating. And to all of your points, being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's really basically what it is. Session 2 and 3 of this type of work is always conversations. So I appreciate the candor, the willingness to share, and really being honest with one another. And I think that is at the baseline of what needs to happen in order for us to create real change. I had shared this with the mayor once before. Other cities are doing one-offs. They're looking at policies and they're identifying, oh, we had this issue, so then we're going to adopt this new policy. This is different. And what you're contributing is to a strategic plan that's looking collectively at all these different areas. So while it feels uncomfortable, know that you are on the right path. And trust in it that we're going to identify norms and we're going to identify next session visionary. We're going to get into the ideas and the innovation of all of this. So with that, I keep hearing, I know someone had posted an article. What we would like to do on the website is create a tab list for resources to prepare us in any other session. And that means any of one of you can post articles that you have as far as best practices, ideas. You all have different expertise. But I wanted to ask if in a quick poll, would you be amicable to having staff contribute to that? We want to make sure that we honor all of you as community members, but we also have our own professions that we've been looking at this for many months. And I can share with you that I can tell you the mayor's been sharing articles on this since before his election. So I just want to ask the permission and maybe take the poll and see if it's okay for staff to also contribute to that website.
Great. While that poll is being conducted, Rose, I'd like to circle back to the poll that we had earlier about November 4th. We had a 69% yes for keeping the November 4th meeting. So I don't know if you would like to speak to that.
Yes, so I think it was overwhelming to keep the meeting on November 4th, but I know the chief has his information with all the different units regarding the Valley. So if there's anything that comes up, we will obviously notify all of you and make adjustments. So just know that we are vigilant of that.
Mr. Powell, I'd just like to say something to that, and it's really related to how those kinds of decisions are made from an equity lens. And so if we were looking at this through an equity lens, one of the questions we would ask ourselves is, who are the people who are most impacted or who may be most impacted by what's going to happen election night? And I have a sensibility, and I'm making a broad general statement, that all of us on this call, with the exception of maybe 5 or 6 people who are directly involved in organizing, responding to what's going to happen on election night, will be really directly impacted, and their voices in this conversation are super important. And so the decision would be made from centering those people. And if those people cannot be present on that phone call, particularly after this election, I would really highly recommend that we do not have this meeting. I can't imagine having this conversation without VD, without Michael, without BLM, without Roy. And so I just really want to say, like, the voting thing, I understand it, but just because people vote yes and there's a majority of that, does not mean that that's a decision being made through an equity lens. Now, if we're not making a decision through an equity lens, that's okay, but let's just own that we're not. And that means we're going to be excluding people. And probably the people who we most want in this conversation.
And
And yeah.
That's a very fair point, Raquel. Thank you for sharing that. So we just ask that you all honor that request, that if there's reasons for you not being able to attend on November 4th, just notify Brianne or Wydell or myself, and then we'll make adjustments. Last point I wanted to share is the city, the police department obviously is one department of many other departments that you all are speaking about. Care 7, Human Services. We will invite some of those key staff members to subsequent meetings so they can listen to some of the conversations. But more importantly, I wanted to share, our office is also working on Right to Breathe, and it's also working on Equity in Action. Once this group identifies a strategic plan, we are looking at intersectionality of items or issues or conversations that take place along with those other initiatives that we do have. So I just wanted to make sure that you all know it's not all silo work. This is not just the police department. This is also the entire city that has many departments that will have touch points to the work that's being done here. And I just wanted to assure you. And with that, I will turn it over, I think, to the mayor for closing comments.
It's me. Can I make a point? Sorry, I have my hand raised.
I'm
sorry about that, Lauren.
I just fully support what Raquel said. And I think I want to just raise a really uncomfortable issue. Should staff and should city council members vote on a lot of these? I mean, at some point, you want a consensus towards the end, but should we have staff voting on some of these issues? Because she's right, it's not an equity approach at all.
Okay. So one thing, I'm not sure if we can tell behind the scenes who voted. I know that only 2/3 of the group voted. I can't guarantee that a staff person didn't, Lauren, but I would want to know that most of the staff have kind of stepped back for this space. So that's kind of the approach that we had. Our to speak to the group norms, staff were asked to kind of help to create a space for your voices. So with that, that's the information I do have in regards to that. So.
Yeah, and I can share, I didn't vote, Lauren, or any of the green dots. So.
And I want to share that I'm a hypocrite and I did vote.
Well, there you go.
Once again, if I may say just a real perspective on November 3rd and what this means, particularly to communities of color, the Black community in particular, we're going to be very intent on watching the results all over. And so we're going to be up way past midnight to 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, maybe looking at returns. And I think many of us are going to be on edge. What many people are not aware of in America's history is a bit of action and reaction. And we are expecting direct consequence if Joe Biden is elected. Let me just put it out there. If Joe Biden is elected, the Black communities of color are expecting those that support the president to act. So therefore, people are not going to be comfortable. That will not be a comfortable night of sleep and rest and rejuvenation. It won't be celebrations in the streets. There will be people concerned about their household, about their loved ones, about those out in the community, because especially those of us who have had our lives threatened, we know that we can be targeted. You get what I'm saying? So my point is, on November the 4th, regardless to what the response is, many of us, our minds will be somewhere else. I think that needs to just be explicitly expressed.
I completely agree with Roy. With what Roy said, what BLM said, with what Dr. Gutierrez said, a lot of us do deal with the consequences, or will deal with the consequences of it, regardless of who wins, really, because we have all been targeted by these right-wing extremists, your AZ Patriots, and other fringe groups that have taken it upon themselves to deem us threats and terrorists and things of that nature knowing that they are effectively reinforced or protected by different police forces out here. So I initially kind of knee-jerk responded by voting that we should, but I honestly think that this is something we should take into reconsideration in terms of having this on the 4th to begin with. It's probably not a good idea. There's so
Well,
many
and
of us will
I
be
just want to
affected.
add, I acknowledge what's been said about whether, you know, as Roy says, whether Joe Biden wins, but I also, I think to be fair, whether if Donald Trump wins re-election, okay, as much as maybe that might be unthinkable to maybe some people, there's also the other side of the reality as well. So I think we have to be very balanced. And I know there are a lot of viewpoints in this group, but it could go either side, okay? And either side at this point, I think there's so much polarization in this country, in our states, in our communities right now, that people on both sides could probably say the same thing about feeling uncomfortable and uneasy, whether whoever wins. So I just want to make sure that, you know, that voice is also heard and acknowledged as well.
Alana, I want to acknowledge that I hear your comment about wanting to make sure that everybody's voice is listened to. I think part of the challenge that we're talking about here in terms of perceptions is that either way, something is going to happen. I think we all know that. I think the concern is, as has been expressed by people on the chat, is that the consequences for some of us will be our lives. Not maybe us directly, but some of it will be our lives, or our husbands' lives, or our kids' lives, and for others it won't be. And so again, what does it mean to center those who are most directly impacted by the issues that are plaguing our communities and our society the most is of utmost importance, and in creating any type of social transformation.
I acknowledge that, Raquel, but there's violence on both sides, and I just think that we need to acknowledge that point.
I'm going to jump in one more time and say that since the end of May, we haven't seen a water bottle thrown at the police departments. Just speaking for myself, it is insulting to place us in the same category as individuals who have placed innocent lives in danger. So we need to look at this from a logical, critical standpoint. Like, you know, these are innocent people whose lives are in danger simply for expressing their right to demand change. It's not the same at all. It's universally different.
Even the fact that they're being said as the same, the fact, like, saying both sides is exactly what Trump said when, you know, the right-wing terrorist killed someone, and he said there's violence on both sides. And so I think that language is actually violent. And it shows that there isn't an equity lens there, and that we can't use that to create policy, because that's going to create the same problems that we had in the first place. It's very important that we understand when we get death threats, there's no one we can go to. In September, we had a march, and we had someone show up with a gun to Vidi's office, Poder and Action's office. This was after the police union put their name out. So it was the police union who brought them that violence. And so if we're not having a clear understanding of the fact that it's not violence on both sides, there's a marginalized community that are being harassed. And you can't say that, oh, it's both sides are bad. I mean, that is Trump's language. And so I think that we need to have a common understanding of how we're coming from here, because if we're also trying to center right-wing terrorists, we're not going to have any change or reform.
My original point was there's a group of people that clearly state that they're prepared to engage in violent activity after election. That's documented. I'm not making that up. So I think,
and that group of people is not BLM. So that group of people is coming from the Proud Boys, the right-wing Trump supporters, the MAGA supporters. That violence is not being put out there by BLM, and yet we are the ones being monitored for counterterrorism, and yet our lives are the ones that are in danger every time we go out to march, because the police show up to our marches armed and ready in riot gear to take us out and use excessive force against us. And in addition to the police showing up, we also have the right-wing counter protesters showing up with their weapons ready to incite violence. We never show up to any right-wing protests saying that we're going to incite violence against them because they're protesting. That doesn't happen, but it happens to us because we're the marginalized communities and we're the ones that are being targeted by not only the right-wing communities, but also by the police department. So the violence isn't coming from us.
And they're being reinforced by these police departments across Maricopa County. You could look no further than Gilbert and Warner. You have some kids who are even underage. She's just advocating for Black lives. And in response to that, you have your right-wing extremists who show up on the other side of Gilbert and Warner, armed to the teeth. And who do the police choose to encircle? Definitely not them.
Okay.
It says a lot about the status that about the state that we're in right now. And to use the rhetoric that there's, both sides are inciting violence, it's completely tone deaf. There's no way that you can't put sugar on that.
That's not what I was saying. I'm saying that all violence is wrong. And I think we just need to be fair and equitable. And yes, we need to acknowledge that one side is getting a little bit more than the other. But I just think that, we need to keep a balanced view and know that all violence is wrong. But, there is Antifa to also be mindful of, not the same as BLM. Okay. But I think that we need to acknowledge that there are other groups out there, in addition to right-wing groups, that have to be acknowledged and that, police need to be aware of.
Okay.
I don't want to
Thank you all.
but
I'd like to pass this back to Rosa. To give Rosa a chance. She's been trying to jump in as well. So
sorry about that.
I never.
That's okay, Roy.
I just think it's important for the committee to understand that these are the dynamics that will be here if we meet on November 4th. It won't be a productive meeting.
And if we're here for the community, we are the community that's speaking up right now. We're telling you that we're the ones that are being targeted. We are literally living this fear every single day. And it's not about us being violent ones. We are not the violent ones. We are not inciting violence. Has there been violence in the BLM movement? Has there been riots? Yes, but we are not inciting violence. Oftentimes, there are agitators that come into our crowds to incite violence, and then they blame it on us. We are not the ones who are out there intentionally or purposefully bringing violence to the community or to businesses or causing riots. That is not what we do. We go out to protest for our rights to breathe, for our right to be seen, for our right to be heard, for our lives to matter. We don't come out there with violence. So to insinuate that we do is insulting.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, with regard to just going back, this is a really good discussion, frankly, and I appreciate the fact that we're having it. To Roy's comment, regarding whether or not we should have the meeting on November 4th, given the fact that I'll have to work with our city staff, with Rose and her team to see what's best. We can obviously go back and frankly have that conversation in terms of having another vote, whatever. I know that some folks were talking about, a vote is not necessarily what needs to be taken in this situation to determine what the best way to go forward is with regard to having a meeting on November 4th. So what I can obviously pledge to everyone to this call is that I'll have a conversation with Rose after the fact and with our city manager, and we will make a decision about what's best to do. If we have to move the meeting from November 4th, we recognize that all people on this call have very busy schedules and might not be able to make whatever the rescheduled meeting is, but that might just be what has to happen. But, we could definitely make that call the next day or so, and we can send out an email and just sort of let you know what the decision is, but I'm more than happy to take that heat on myself.
Thank you, Mayor. So Rosa?
No, I was just going to say the same thing.
Okay.
I think the power of this group is to have everyone participate. So if people are uncomfortable, we took a vote, and if we know that people are not going to be able to attend, we don't have a meeting without the voices of all of you. That has been from the start. We have said everyone contributes in their unique manner. So we need to make sure that people are showing up. So please let us know, and we'll commit to the vote. We'll commit to having you communicate with us whether you're able to attend next week. And if not, then as the mayor said, we will regroup and we'll make sure we find another date. And with that, Mayor, did you have any other closing comments?
No, I know we're already, 20 minutes over, but honestly, I'm totally fine with the fact that we are. We got into a very good, very candid conversation for the last, 25, 30 minutes. And so I think that's part of the, quite honestly, the realness of this group is that, we are here to have tough conversations. And at times, as I think, Roy mentioned, I mean, there are going to be times where this is going to be a little bit uncomfortable over the next 4 meetings. And then once the draft plan is created, kind of to Vidi's point, when the draft plan is created, that's supposed to go back to the city manager and Chief Glover in January, there's going to be more public comment and frankly, more discussion around that too. So, but the fact that these conversations are uncomfortable is frankly what we should be doing. And for anyone who's watching the discussion, they realize that this is not scripted. These are people sharing their real perspectives and real feelings about, very emotionally charged issues. And frankly, I welcome that conversation. So I just appreciate all of you taking not even 3 hours tonight, but honestly 3.5 hours tonight to have this discussion. I think it's really important. And I'm looking forward to that 3rd meeting on whatever date that meeting happens to be on.
Thank you, Mayor. And with that, we will conclude our broadcast and our recording. And as a commitment to you, we will also be following up on questions and in the chat, as well as in the documentation on the session board. And so I appreciate your participation tonight. And with that, we will close our recording. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.